Food shortages have been long predicted by proponents of the overpopulation theory. Is it true, or has science been weaponized against humanity? You be the judge. Let's roll.
We've handed over our food security to someone else, and they're here to help you take it back. It's the Farm to Table Direct Show with Ryan and Keith.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Farm to Table Direct Show. Across the table over here is my brother Ryan. I'm Keith, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the overpopulation and the impending food shortage. Well, Ryan, once again, we've got a long list of things, and this time we're going to, just try to stick and run, you know
That's
what I mean?
it,
Just hit and run.
Hit and run, stick and move, kind of get at it. We're going to hit a lot and try to compress this into a shorter amount of time, make it a little more, I guess you'd say, consumable. But, folks, buckle in. It's going to be, there's a lot of information here that we're going to get to. And, bro, it's good to be back in studio with you again.
I know. Seems like it was a little bit in the long
it
time in coming. Life just gets all of us.
I'm telling you, family things come up, and you just got to deal with them. And hopefully that situation is on its way to.
So we're here now.
But we're here now. We're making it happen.
Let's get this thing started. Right, what do you think? And so I'm gonna turn it over to you. I think you were going to start with the history of overpopulation.
Right. For
theory.
Those, if you haven't figured it out, I'm the history nut around here, so that's kind of where I like to start things off. And I mean, we're gonna get into the overpopulation theory, and really kind of the I guess maybe the beginning origins. We got to go all the way back to let's see here. Sorry folks, I'm getting my notes up here where I had them, and we're going to talk about a guy named Robert Malthus and the Malthusian theory of population.
Right.
It's kind of a interesting theory, and basically Malthus, and I'll tell you about him, it's Thomas Malthus, I'm sorry, believed that through preventive checks and positive checks, the population would be controlled to balance the food supply with population level. And these checks would lead to the Malthusian catastrophe, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. It's really just a theory of population growth and food supply growth, and kind of a theory on basically population outgrowing the food supply.
Right. Now, this guy, he was in the late 1800s, I believe.
He was late 1700s, way back in England. He was English, UK, a cleric, i.e. a priest, and scholar. Published his first writing in 1798.
Okay. So prior to the 1800s.
Yeah, definitely. Very early in in that. And he theorized that populations grew in geometric progression.
Right.
It's a sequence of numbers. Each term after the first is found by multiplying the previous one by a fixed non-zero number or common ratio. For example, 2, 10, 50, 250. Common ratio was 5.
Right.
He additionally believed that food production increased in an arithmetic progression. It's a sequence of numbers that the difference between the consecutive terms is constant. For example, 2, 5, 8, 11, common difference is 3. And he derived that law of diminishing returns. And this stuff can get real boring real quick. But he's saying that basically what I said earlier, populations will grow faster than the food supply. And that exponential growth will lead to a food shortage. So that was kind of his thing. And there's a whole lot that goes on into that, And I know that, me and you have talked a little bit and talking about technological advancements affecting that.
He kind of missed the mark because, he couldn't see how that, even though the population growth, portion, we did grow exponentially.
Right.
And we're still growing that way.
Yeah.
However, he didn't see how the technology was going to help us feed more of the population.
Right. And it's one of the things that I found kind of interesting about his theory, and you talk about that technological stuff, and in fact I highlighted about the food production over the past century, that the food production rate has actually grown higher than the population growth rate.
Right.
Exact opposite of what his theory was.
Although, the theory itself, whenever you just don't know.
Well, you just don't know. He actually, 1798, and I'll read a little further on, when we get into the, I guess you might say, the criticism against this theory, if you will. But he was very narrow focused, very short-sighted in it. But, during the 30s in the U.S., 25% of the population worked in the agricultural section, and the total gross domestic product was less than $100 billion. Today, less than 2% of the population works in the agriculture sector, and the total gross domestic product is over $14 trillion.
Right, that says a lot.
Yeah, so I mean, that's really where things have changed, and it's just one of those. He's an interesting fellow.
Yeah, well, then after Malthus, then we go further up to, I mean, there were people who were proponents of it from the Malthus era.
Right. Well, I mean, it's, get down here where I had this highlighted. Mind you, he was an economic pessimist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's the thing with Malthus. Viewing poverty as humanity's inescapable lot, and he did all the way up to a massive 6th edition, and his facts and stats were just not even for UK. Their development, he ignored the sophisticated techniques during even his own lifetime. So, I mean, so I said there was a lot of flaw in his theory, but yeah, it moved, the theory moved forward. I mean, that was 1798, and not that long ago. I mean,
right.
This has come along. I'm going to kind of jump, and this is sensationalist a little bit, but it's worth reporting. According to the UK tabloid and the Daily Star, some scientists are now predicting that the world will run out of food in 27 years. So 27 years as of April 24th of this year. So,
okay.
So as of April 24th, 27 years and 251 days. So start your doomsday countdown.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. The science is settled, apparently. We're done by 2050.
Right.
That's what they're saying. Now, this was from, let me give you who this is from, because I don't want to take credit for that story. American Thinker is who put this. And now they even go on to say that what if 26 years from now, half of us go on strict diets, limit our caloric intake.
Ain't going to happen.
Or 60% of us are by then vegan.
Ain't going to happen.
Or 10% of the projected population is killed off by Lyme disease, economic policies.
Right.
We actually have 27 years, 351 days. Or dare we hope 29 years. Or can we make it to 2055? It's kind of, sensationalist, but sociobiologist, that big fancy word, E.O. Wilson, is quoted in a report saying there are limits to Earth's capacity to feed humanity. Even if everyone on the planet agreed to become vegetarian, the world's farmland could not support the need. The world population will be too big to feed itself. By then, there will be almost 10 billion people on the planet, and that the food demand will have increased by 70% compared to what we needed in 2017. The limit to how many people the Earth can feed is set at 10 billion at the absolute maximum. There's no wiggle room.
Yeah, just like Malthus and others, how do they get to that number?
Well, it's some
fancy. We're almost there.
Right. I mean, our population, we're at 7.5.
Right, 7.5.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, that thing, it says now, it's unlikely that everyone will stop eating meat. So the limit's actually lower. That's what they're saying.
Well, I'm going to do my best to make sure that everybody's eating meat.
I had a nice juicy ribeye steak last night.
Yeah.
But there's an excess amount of food being eaten and wasted every day.
Right.
For example, if everyone shared the diet of the average American, the world could only feed 2.5 billion people.
Oh my gosh!
That's,
really?
That's what they say. Yeah, that's what they're saying. We could feed a much larger population if we didn't eat meat, but it requires more energy to produce meat than any other food. For example, it takes 75 times more energy to produce meat than corn. That's what this study says.
Right.
I like his reply. I see. It's the Americans' fault.
Right.
However, If other nations produced food as the U.S. does, there would be no looming food shortage, crisis, or famine. Just saying.
Right.
Just saying. We produce more too. So yeah, it's just, it says here, their excessive rate of food consumption, planet's growing population. We will need to produce more food in the next 40 years than is produced in the last 8,000 years combined. Call me a skeptic. I don't think I buy that.
Right. I mean, their batting average is not too good.
Right. No, it's, however, given the elitist clowns that are in control, doomsday predictions may actually come true.
Right. There was a section just right up above some of that. Unfortunately, mine's not highlighted the same as yours, but it says food and healthcare have become more plentiful in large part due to the spread of capitalism, free markets, and American agricultural practices and equipment.
Right.
And so, that made me ask the question, are free markets and capitalism the key to successfully feeding everyone on the planet?
I can't see capitalism being the problem.
I don't think so. Because, maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but seems to me like free market capitalism is what largely produced the food that we have.
Yep.
Maybe to some people's lament, I don't know.
Maybe for the non-capitalist people, but that darned economic growth.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's one of the biggest recent proponents, I guess you might say, is a guy named Paul Ehrlich.
Right.
I know you may have heard that name.
I definitely have.
He's something else, but he published a book back in I guess it was 1968. Another year I think we've mentioned him before, but 1968 was a busy year. Do you remember when the world ended in 1985?
I was here.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm still here.
So I don't remember that. Neither do I.
Yeah.
That was his prediction in 1970.
I don't even think I was thinking about it back in those days. It's
85,
like, oh, by the way, you've only got 5 more days before the world ends.
Yeah, 1985, I had my mind on other things.
Oh, definitely.
It says, in 1970, in an interview with CBS, most of the people who are going to die in the greatest cataclysm in the history of man have already been born. Sometime in the next 15 years, the end will come. So that was pretty. But he had the book, The Population Bomb,
right?
Or The Population Dud. I don't
right.
know.
That's
what we call a bomb that doesn't go off is a dud. So I don't know. But it says starvation and ruination on a global scale, famine, social upheaval would spread. And we talked about the population a while ago. It says when he made that claim, population was just under 3.7 billion. By 85, when he predicted this would all end, it had risen to 4.85 billion. Today, it's around 7.4, 7.5 billion. And his thing was refuted even then. I mean, it's
right.
This is an interesting stat to kind of go, kind of leading us into kind of some of the argument, I guess you might say, against this. It's the world hunger. As the population has doubled in less than 5 decades, world hunger has declined by 216 million people. World poverty has declined from roughly 60% of the Earth's population to 9.6% in 2015, and the average gross domestic product per capita has doubled from 5,165 in 1970 to 10,418 in 2015. So per person, global capital. I mean, that's double the GDP in that amount of time. So I mean, that's
and you know what? These things are not slowing down, I don't think. I mean, as far as technological advancements and our abilities to do things, you know, it is exponential. What this brings to mind is how many times have I heard people say is that, well, I mean, technology doubles every so many years, and those years get those years get lower and lower as they go. And I mean, right now, it's got to be screaming fast.
Well, right. I mean, by the time you get an iPhone or an iPad, the most up-to-date Xbox or whatever, by the time you get it on the shelf and you buy it as a consumer, it's already basically obsolete. It's already been replaced. It's already
right.
It just hasn't been marketed. It hasn't been cycled out. And I'll not go off on the vicious soapbox about the cell phones, but
right.
But it is an important thing that and I mean we kind of just hit and tapped on these guys. Who they were. I mean, Paul Ehrlich, I said, he wrote a book, his theories, and the funny thing is with that guy is he, he's kept, like, even when he was confronted with his being wrong, he was pretty smart about it. Just like, the only thing that I was wrong in my prediction is that it's going to be worse.
Yeah, he just said it was,
it was just going to be worse.
That he was too optimistic.
He was too optimistic. Yeah, that's
thinking,
it.
What? Dude, you were wrong on almost every count. On every count.
Oh, and by the way, he kept his post at Harvard.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So Harvard, up at Harvard.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to lead this into, as we go in here, a side effect from Ehrlich's book and writings of his and the Malthusian theory and those things.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that certain organizations, people overreacted in the time that it was written. There was an overreaction.
Mm-hmm.
And this was written, this was a statement by science journalist Charles Mann. He wrote it in the Smithsonian. Don't know when. He just knows. International Planned Parenthood Federation, Population Council, the World Bank, United Nations Population Fund, the Hugh Moore-backed Association for Voluntary Sterilization, and other organizations promoted and funded programs to reduce fertility in poor places.
Yeah, which article?
That was
that coming
that
from?
Was out of It was that came off of out of the Smithsonian. It's by Charles Mann. It's just a little blurb there about it.
Mm-hmm.
What he writes is they resulted in horrific population control programs, mandating the use of contraceptives, sprinkling birth control pills across rural villages via helicopter, fixing health care workers' salaries to the number of IUDs they inserted into women, sterilizing millions of people, often forcibly.
Right.
Now, I'm reading this. This is coming off of capitalresearch.org is where this is coming from.
Yeah, do we have that tab?
I do.
I don't know that I have
it's under Paul Ehrlich. It'll just be a red C.
It's a red C.
Yeah,
okay, I got you.
This culminated, of course, Communist China's infamous one-child policy came out of that. Forced abortion, contraception use. Turns out enforcing population stabilization is a brutal business.
Yeah, it is.
And something that American foundations that fund those activities are curiously loath to admit. This article says, take the Hewlett Foundation, for example, claims to be concerned with reducing unsafe abortion. During an 2009 interview, their population program director, Sarah Seams, sneered at what she termed American anti-choice organizations. So I'm assuming she means pro-life.
I would think so, yeah.
In other words, groups that oppose abortion on demand. But as CRC president Scott Walter noted in 2013, if she's ever criticized the anti-choice organization known as the Chinese Communist Party, I can't find it.
Right.
So they go on to say that, as far as Ehrlich and his book, The Population Bomb, the books that begat Big Green, so the Green, part of the Green movement, and one of the first to sensationalize overpopulation theories. They had their roots in earlier pseudoscientific theory, eugenics, according to Dr. Allen. It's the eugenics movement spearheaded by scientists. This is that Dr. Allen. Widespread in America and Europe, early decades of the 20th century, called for selective breeding of humans, sterilization of undesirables, such as habitual criminals, people with disabilities, and mountain folk, hillbillies.
Can you believe that?
I know.
I mean, how I don't know, just thick skin.
Yeah. Well, and this writer says that if it touched off any bomb, it was one of government-induced infanticide and sterilization.
It did, right?
Yeah, and I mean that brings us to kind of the hot topic of the day. I know, and folks, we're moving fast, but that brings us to kind of the hot topic of the day, and that's the leaked draft of the Roe v. Wade. Possibly, with the decision that's coming out with that, and kind of a hot issue right now. One that I think it's pretty clear where we stand. We're kind of pretty much pro-life all the way.
Yes,
reading on the Constitution, the Federalist is where I'm reading from. Okay. They highlighted an opinion of the court, said Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. And then he said it's time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. He writes, this writer, John Daniel Davidson's writers, and said, "Seed the seeds of a crisis that will end with America ceasing to be divided. We will become all one thing or all the other."
Right.
On that issue.
I read that statement, and I tried to think through that. Does that just mean that we'll just not try to get along anymore? We'll just kind of all go to our own little space, or
and I'll kind of get into his opinion on it in a minute. It'll explain it, but because he kind of references back, and I'm not going to read all through it, but he references back even to the Civil War and some of the way people's attitude were back then. Says the leak of the opinion has captured the nation's attention. Without question, the most important news story in the country. If the draft decision stands, the most important political development in a generation. One of the things he says, and I agree with him, by snatching the question of abortion from the American people and their elected representatives, and doing so with such shoddy jurisprudence, has since distorted many other areas of constitutional law. So there's a lot of areas that affected. That's what he's saying. Roe divided the nation, sowed seeds of a constitutional crisis. They're now coming into view. What's clear is the left is willing to destroy every institution of American civic life to preserve their abortion regime. Do we want to hear a quote from a Twitter quote from Mr. Biden? I ain't going to play it, but I'll read it.
Yeah, sure, read it.
Biden says, Roe says what all basic mainstream religions have historically concluded, that the existence of a human life and being is a question.
What?
That's what I said when I read, because it made no sense to me. I had to read it about 5 times.
It's like, I've read the Bible quite a bit, and I don't remember hearing that or that.
Even when I
concept.
Studied other religions, there's never a question of is life and a human. They might ask what is life, but they've never disputed life,
right?
But that's our commander in chief, folks.
Yeah.
I'll
just hold my tongue.
That's why I got to leave it there. Now, what I'm about to say, for the fact checkers and the people who would maybe criticize this, I'm just quoting somebody. It's a colleague of this writer. Her name is Molly Hemingway. Said that both the leak of the opinion and the ensuing reaction on the left amount to yet another insurrection attempt. This time, the target is not the Trump White House, but the Supreme Court. Pretty bold statement.
Right.
But we are seeing one of their other familiar tools, the violent mob. It's as if on cue, a chorus arose Monday night, Tuesday morning, with pro-abortion activists on Twitter that if Roe was overturned, they would burn it all down.
Right.
So, such incendiary language considered figurative or rhetorical, but after 2020,
well, I don't think I agree with that, bro, because everything that I've heard is that it's the right that's not peaceful.
Well, that's what they say,
and
but
that we are. Oh my gosh, those MAGA people.
Right, the MAGA, and they're right wing extremists.
And,
and they're doing these terrible things. But yet, the firebombing of the pro-life.
Are you sure that came from the left?
Well, the guy came from a pro-choice organization, so
Look, they said that they were going to have was it a summer of rage, or they said something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. In other words, it's going to just be, Hades everywhere.
We'll see.
The other kind of Hades.
Can't discount them. We've seen, they've already taken to protesting outside the judges' houses, and after that, doxing.
Another doxing.
Right.
Yeah.
You asked about where everybody stood on her, kind of what's the benign view, and there are some that have taken a view suggesting that if the draft opinion is adopted and Roe is overturned, that federalism will allow us to sort out our differences on abortion. Some states will ban it outright, as Texas and dozens of other states have prepared to do with so-called trigger laws. And some will enshrine abortion access in law, as California has already done. Once we're all sorted, the two sides can live and let live. That's the pacifist or, benign view about it. Now,
right.
I mentioned trigger laws. Some of the states have already passed legislation that if Roe is overturned, it will automatically trigger these laws into effect in their states.
Okay, and those trigger laws would be something like the
banning or
at least limiting
serious restrictions.
Restrictions.
And
okay.
so it's that's just kind of where they're at.
And I guess that's why that the left is fighting so hard about it, because whenever I read what it actually said.
Right.
It was only turning the power back over to the state. So.
Right. That's that's all it is. It's sending it back down to the state legislatures and the state government and the people at each state to decide their own laws. And that's the way things have been. That's the way it's designed to be, in fact. Darn pesky Constitution.
It gets in the way, doesn't it?
The 10th Amendment.
I know.
Anyway,
rights for the,
those powers not enumerated to the federal government belong to the state.
Right.
And so, it's,
Well, what did Barack Obama say? It tells us what we can't do, but doesn't tell us what we can do for you.
Right.
I would say do to you. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, anyway, I've hit that. I wanted to hit that because it was a key thing. It's a hot issue right now, and it's the overpopulation theory, the whole writings of it. It really did fan a lot of what's going on. I find it no coincidence that some of the stuff we read with Club of Rome and with the Nixon Commission report from Rockefeller in our earlier episodes, and then now as we're talking about the overpopulation theory and the food shortage, this was all, the late 60s.
Right.
Well,
it was all right in that.
And in 73 is when Roe was ruled upon. So, right in that time when all that hysteria about population control, and I just think that certain organizations that had existed prior to that, or were birthed out of it even, but seized upon that opportunity to further an agenda or further use it as a tool to, just control population.
Or could it just be a series of coincidences?
Coinkydinks. I don't know.
Right.
It's an awful convenient coincidence.
Right.
But and like I said, it's. I didn't put any of the clips in here because I'm not going to give them the clickbait and the airtime to to justify their existence. But some of the interviews I've seen with people in California about their stances on abortion laws and abortion rights. One lady commented something about it was okay all the way up to 2 years. It's the mother's choice. It's like.
Right. Yeah. It gets really extreme, and it's just like, the old saying is that if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Right.
And I think that both of us are definitely old enough to remember when it was all about was rape or incest, basically.
Oh, yeah, right. Or the life of the mother was
in jeopardy.
Right. Those were kind of the three, and then then all of a sudden it's like free for all, on demand, no reason, no excuse.
Right. You fast forward to today.
Well, we have the most as a federal or as a country, individual states are different, but we actually have the least restrictive laws in practically the world. I mean, China being, kind of their own place, but a lot of the European countries that are
more restrictive than
they're way more restrictive.
Yeah.
There has to be a justification,
really?
And a medical doctor usually has to be involved where an opinion is rendered. It's it's not just walk in and get it done. There's sometimes a 6-month waiting process. Sometimes they have to watch videos or they have to go through classes. There's a lot of things they have to do or things they have to jump, hurdles they have to cross before they can just get it. And yet, if you try to do that, I mean, we've seen what happens when you try to do that here. People come unhinged.
Well, apparently, Summer of Rage. I got a lot to look forward to, apparently.
But yeah, so I mean, that's just kind of, folks. We're just kind of hitting that topic. We're talking about it. It's
well, right. We were talking about population control,
and that is a form of population control.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our audience probably already have gotten got all the memos about things way back when.
Right. So so we can kind of jump into kind of today, this overpopulation, kind of the opposition to it.
Right.
Where this article that I'm reading right here, let's see, it says environmentalism. This one. Recycled overpopulation alarmism is anti-science, anti-freedom, and anti-human. Which kind of ties back into what we were just saying.
Yeah.
And I know you had that was, it's says, in fact, she even talks about Ehrlich. I mean, this is how deep his ties go into this.
I mean, you can't talk about overpopulation and not get into Ehrlich and his influence.
Says, predicted the demand of so many new souls would inevitably outstrip the world's supply of food, energy, et cetera, et cetera. Says, he was utterly wrong on almost all of his points. Okay, now, this is where I'm going to kind of get into one of Ehrlich's acolytes, or followers, who happen to be Biden's recent nominee for the Bureau of Land Management, Tracy Stone Manning. And she come under criticism for her involvement in eco-terrorism. What they were doing was spiking trees in the logging industry, which can kill loggers when they're in there, and if there's a spike in there and they're cutting and a hit, it can blow them. I mean, it does bad things. It can kill people.
Right. So if we're going to appoint anybody, we're going to appoint an activist or an eco-terrorist, to
manage it.
Right.
And she had a graduate thesis discouraging everyone, especially those in developed countries, from having more than 2 children. For her, children not a blessing, but an environmental hazard. And the truly smart thing is to stop at 1 or 2 kids. That's what's possibly kill. Her involvement should disqualify her from the appointment. But they say her argument against having children deserves a rebuttal. Much like fascism and Marxism, the anti-human claims made by extreme environmentalists against overpopulation accounts for so much death and destruction, yet still enjoy legitimacy and respect among the elites in the developed world. I mean, that's, I think you had some highlights further down in that, but, it just amazes me that, this idea, just this anti-human, idea. You're wanting to pass regulations, wanting to pass laws that specifically go against the very survival of the species.
Right.
And it's like,
it's that's going to be one of the next topics we actually get into is, how it's trying to save humans by harming humans.
Right. And it's, it amazes me the level that people will go to. It shouldn't, but it does. And I mean, it's just, I just don't even know how to, how to think. I'm going to, and there's actually an article against this from Big Think. See, I think that was, you had that tabbed in as far as, humans aren't overpopulated, aging and shrinking. I think that was from, Big Think. Do you have that tab?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. See if we can share that, or if you can find it and pull that up. I know I moved through a bunch of tabs in about 3 seconds right there. Or
Right.
probably longer
Yeah.
than 3 seconds, but, we're moving. I'm sticking to our guns on the stick and move business.
Yeah, trying to.
Anyway, I'll just go again and kind of hit some of that. It says a new study explored current and projected population changes. Europe and Asia are shrinking. Africa is still growing. And for the first time in history, people aged 65 outnumber children younger than 5. Underpopulation will cause serious challenges for sustainability.
We're actually going to be shrinking because we're not having as many children by choice, I suppose.
Well, some of it is by choice.
There, I don't know.
We were just talking about that. But,
yeah.
But there's just been a lot of things that have changed. Mentality of this generation of younger people, how many they want to have or don't want to have kids at all. And we're just seeing more of that. And some of the stuff out there has shown that as people move to cities and as we become more industrialized or more, tech centric and that type of thing, that the population actually does decrease because of the space available, because of population, and people are busy and they just,
and the more they move into cities,
right?
Like women are beginning to focus on careers and that sort of thing, and not necessarily, and there, I think there's some other fears that women are having right now that especially as they move into the cities, that they don't think it's the right environment to raise children or something like that.
I would say some of it probably is that, but also just economics even. With inflation.
Right. Can we afford it?
Can we afford to have multiple children?
And that's really a big exclamation point right now, especially in light of the fact that,
8.5 inflation rate.
Yeah, the inflation rate, the price of food is getting crazy. Right. Fertilizer, we don't have enough fertilizer. They're not growing as much food. And then you add on top of that, we now have a baby formula crisis or a baby formula shortage in America.
Of all places.
Yeah. And so, those types of things is probably going to say, it's not quite time for us to have those children we were thinking about. Maybe we ought to wait till things settle down a little bit. So it can only, limit it, I think.
And there's issues that have developed, in the last, I don't know what years, and I'm not going to pull out some scientific numbers I don't have, but there's a lot of situations where a lot of this younger generation, for whatever reasons, be it some shot they may have been given in the past, or
you mean
or whatever.
There's a fertilization issue,
or they have something that ain't working right, and so they just can't have children, and so you have a lot of that going on as well, and so I think all those things are effective, but we're beginning to see, like it said in that study, for the first time, 65 and older outnumbers 5 and under.
Yeah, that's crazy,
and
right.
You can't sustain, growth. You can't
society
sustain,
like that, right?
Right, and so I think that's an important, issue on it, and the changes in the population is crazy, but we'll move on from that one. It's let's see. Well, there was something here. It said, I want to read this. This one actually did matter. A key metric for understanding population shifts is replacement level fertility, which is the average number of children women need to have to keep the population constant. This rate is roughly 2.2 children to replace the mother and father, with 0.1 added on, not because not all children survive to adulthood. In dozens of nations, the replacement rate has fallen below 1.5, especially in Europe and East Asia. One for the reason for the drop, what we just talked about, rapid urbanization. By 1950, about 1/3 of humans live in urban areas. Ratio is projected to double by 2050. There's that year again, with about 7 billion people living in cities, many of whom will do so for employment. and so on and so forth. Kind of things we talked about. That's happened even here in the U.S.
Right.
So, I mean, that's kind of just some brass tacks numbers. But, I mean, it's the fact of the matter is, I mean, it's the science, follow the science. The science says, the mathematics says, the exact opposite is happening.
Right.
So whatever side you fall on that, I mean, when one side is talking theories, the other side is talking factual numbers, population numbers.
Right.
And so, again, you be the judge.
Well, I mean, is it that they have scientists who basically disagree with each other, and they find, in other words, what it would be called information biased. In other words, if you believe this way, you're going to look for the scientist that will back up the way that you.
Well, obviously, I mean that's. I mean, yeah, obviously, if you've got an argument, you're going to look to the people that support your argument.
Right.
Now, if you're a critical thinker, if you're an independent free thinker, you're going to look at both sides and draw a conclusion, and that's what we're trying to do here: is present both sides and let our listeners draw a conclusion.
Right.
For me, it's real simple that, that is science. Two scientists, there's a theory or there's a thought, and somebody comes out with a counter argument or a thesis, or comes out with something to counter that, or some evidence or facts to counter. Well, that is science. That's questioning.
Right.
That's reasoning. That's questioning the established norm. So, I mean,
how many times has science changed? It's never settled. I think science is never settled.
No,
I mean, there are certain things that has held, true over a long period of time.
Well, right.
And we can pretty much say that that's probably a settled science.
Some of Newton's laws, gravity works.
Right. What goes up must come down. Right.
There's certain things that have held fast and held true.
Right.
And those tend to fall more into the realm of nature and how nature is designed.
Mm-hmm.
Where we get into problems is when we
theorize.
We get theories or thoughts that get expressed, or because for those that missed this in class, you have a theory, and then you a hypothesis or a theory, and then you go through the testing, and if you can prove your theory, it can then become factual. But until then, it is just a theory.
Right.
It's a thought. It's an idea.
Well, I mean, how many people jumped on the Malthusian train and the Paul Ehrlich train, and they stayed with it, and both of those jokers were wrong.
Dead wrong. And they're still being followed.
Right. Now, am I saying that nothing could ever happen to us? No, I'm not saying that.
Well, I mean,
But, let's don't just jump in their boat and expect that's the boat that's going to save us.
Right.
I don't think so.
I don't either. And and I think we've hammered down. I mean, both sides of this, that there is just some, like I said, theories, but those theories have led to dangerous policies. Those theories have led to dangerous organizations and thought processes and actions. From the legal side and unelected official side, and it's a global issue. It's not just an America issue; it's a global issue.
Yeah, it is.
And so that's what's born out of theories, and that's why theories can be so dangerous. But that's where that's at. And like I said, some of the anti-science just saying that, the opposition saying that the math just doesn't add up, that there's actually less population coming than more population. And so,
well, I happen to believe that, we ought to be able to talk about it.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we ought to be able to agree and disagree, and you can try and convince me, that and show me information to where maybe I'm not seeing the bigger point or whatever. But that's not really what I see. I just see that we're slinging names, that we're, that people are calling each other names, and then they just want to silence the other person and demonize the other side. And it's a sad state of affairs.
Right. It gets us nowhere. I guess kind of the closing thoughts are, and you got to ask yourselves this: are the politicians and unelected officials of our own government and other countries weaponizing science to achieve an ideological outcome.
Yeah.
They continue to go down the path of climate change policies. It's harmful to our industries, our food producers, our supply chain. And no matter which side you fall on, stop waiting for them to make the right choices.
Right.
They're not going to. Reports are saying as early as this fall we could see increased food shortages. So, what are you going to do to prepare? That's really the thing. And in this episode, we dug into the overpopulation theory, some of its history, a little brief bit, arguments against it, which, were logical, I thought. We also spoke on the idea of weaponizing science and about the impending food shortages. And as future episodes are put out for your learning and consumption, we will continue to uncover the truth, show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. The biggest thing we can do is realize that it will take us all to stop this and protect our families and communities. And we hope we're providing you information that is helpful to you and entertaining as well. Please tell your friends and family and tune in. You can listen to us on iHeart Radio and Spotify. Just search for the Farm to Table Direct Show. That is the Farm, the number 2 Table Direct Show. You can check us out on, we are on Rumble. It's the Farm to Table Direct Show. You can check us out, our hot takes on our YouTube channel, the Farm to Table Direct Show. Email us at farmtotabledirect@protonmail.com, or you can visit our website, the farmtotabledirect.show.com. But until the next episode, prepare for the unexpected
and keep it local.